one of the things that is claimed in here is that Blake Lively insisted that they write sex scenes at her penthouse, that Baldoni come over without the intimacy coordinator, excluding the intimacy coordinator, and work on developing sex scenes at her penthouse. Isn't that, if true, isn't that pretty shocking?
What does that mean?
So everybody, you know that I have been covering this crazy Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni situation. And honestly, so much has happened that it feels like it's been going on for years, when really it's just really been a matter of weeks. So without further ado, I want to talk to Jamie. You have worn many hats actually in your extensive career in Hollywood. Do you want to just kind of describe for me your background?
I have done every job I think a person can do in Hollywood, from PR to on camera to behind the camera. I've even done craft services one time on a low budget film just to help. I managed my daughter's career. And then I think most interestingly, I spent about 5 to 7 years between talent agencies and management companies. So I have a lot of perspective just from a 360 experience there.
What really comes across in some of the insightful statements that you made in your TikTok video.
So I wanted to weigh in on the Blake Lively drama as someone that has worked with her and someone that's worked with directors in Hollywood for over 10 years.
It's a short video, but you tell this story about an experience that you had. It's a weird, crazy experience to me with Blake Lively. So do you want to kind of set the stage for that? So why were you in this building on that day? Who were you working for? Why was Blake Lively there?
It's a great jumping off point too, because it goes in chronological order, because it was my first internship. It was my first experience on set outside of sports television, which prior to that, I'd really just been to set with my mom, who was a sportscaster. And I had been interning for the summer there. I was 20 years old, and they were promoting Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants when this whole, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a micro incident, but then when you factor in sort of a pattern of behavior, it kind of speaks to a little bit more of this scenario. So summer of 2005, I'm interning for the Fuse channel, which is like a punk rock MTV in New York City.
I remember it.
Yes. So I was an intern, and like the way that they structured the internship was you basically bounced show to show to show. They'd shoot something in the morning, they'd shoot something in the afternoon, they'd shoot something in the evening, and you would just, bounce around and help where you could. Like low level things. One of my responsibilities was handing out water and fetching tapes and logging tape. You used to have to log tape by hand back then. So there's like a rule, don't talk to talent when you're that level, but I would love to clarify that for your listeners and your watchers or viewers, because people don't seem to understand why don't talk to talent is a rule. And just from other experiences, having hired my own interns and just worked with other interns, you don't know who you're hiring all the time with the interns, because it is entry level. So the whole reason the blanket rule is don't talk to talent is you get people who run up to your Tom Cruises and go, here's my headshot. Can you help me break into the industry? Here's my script. Can you read it? And they're just there trying to do their job. So until everybody gets to know you, don't talk to the talent.
I think that makes perfect sense. And that didn't seem strange to me, but I'm glad that you cleared it up, because I know that
I keep getting that question of like, what do you mean don't talk to talent? I'm going to talk to who I want. Well, it's not going to work again. I'll tell you that right now. Don't be the creepy intern.
Well, I know that I know that there are a lot of people who resent this celebrity elitism that we see, for instance, on display in the story that you're about to tell me. And so I get the irritation, but at the same time, people have to understand what it's. I've had a few occasions in my life to be around big time celebrities, and they are just everywhere they go. They are accosted basically by people who want something from them. And so that's just it's not a sustainable way of functioning, especially if you've got someone there to do business, right?
Well, that's exactly why this story was such a big deal, despite like people not understanding the surface level. It wasn't specifically that she was mean, because she wasn't directly mean to me. It was that I could have had a career ending, you are a problem, you treat people like fans reputation. And so that's where it's like, this was a really big deal when I full fact didn't talk to her, and I was singled out as the one that did, allegedly by her. So I'll color in the whole situation. Yeah, so we had this show. It was a lot like TRL. To the best of my recollection, it was called Daily Download, if that rings a bell. And they were walking to set from the green room, and I passed them in the hallway, and it was a really narrow hallway, so I had to like back up. And I was with two other interns who also didn't talk to them. And then I hand out the water bottles. I go on to a live set where, again, you better be quiet because audio matters there. And show ends. And about 20 minutes later, they're like, emergency intern meeting upstairs, which is weird because like we had other shows we had to get to. I get upstairs and they do a public yelling at all of us of being like, you guys need to be more professional. Like you don't talk to talent. Like you made them uncomfortable. You treated them like a fan. And I'm looking around like, who did it? Who did it? Who did it? Then they're like, Jamie, stay after. And now I'm like,
What?
right. So now I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh no, like I had something to do with this. And initially I'm thinking maybe they thought I witnessed something and they were going to ask me like, did Stephanie speak or whatever.
Yeah, because you were just so absolutely sure that you had not in any way done something offensive.
I didn't speak to any of our producers. Like I just like there was no interaction with anyone. I just quiet like a mouse on set and quiet like off. So they're like, Blake said that you treated her like a fan. You made her so uncomfortable. And I'm horrified because not only did I not talk to her, of all the people in the cast, I had no idea who she was. I just knew she was the pretty girl with the nice hair. Like that was the literal my only.
That's still who she is.
And I'm freaking out because I had gotten the job because my dad had called in a favor. That's what I meant by in the video. I was the local Nepo baby. Like I had this job as a favor and I could have blown the whole thing by being a fan. And I was just mortified. So
I get it. A major celebrity complains to your boss that you were being sketchy and basically violating one of the basic rules, it sounds like, of your job.
Yeah, that's like two rules. It's like get what they ask you to retrieve for them and then don't annoy the talent. Like that's the base requirement for any Hollywood internship. Don't creep out the talent. And here I am getting you creeped out talent allegations. I'm mortified. I'm humiliated. I walk out crying because I'm like, I don't know why I would have been singled out to begin with. Like nobody spoke to I didn't see anybody talking. It wasn't like I was misidentified from what I saw. So that was a rough one. And she was the least recognizable person on this cast. Like Gossip Girl hadn't come out yet. So it was really out of left field. And I, to this day, still don't know what it was about. But like, I saw an interview she did later where she was disrespectful to a reporter. And my memory was just jogged of like, I had an off experience with this girl. And again, having worn many hats in Hollywood and grown up on set and coming from a family of Hollywood people, I knew the rules. They were clear. So it just really felt like out of left field and baseless. And I don't know. And again, can somebody change over 20 years? Absolutely. This is just a weird story. But then when you see interviews she's done and you hear other industry insiders anecdotally having stories, you're like, it starts to just paint a broader picture here.
I'll say this. If you look at the lawsuits, the competing lawsuits, his and hers, it on a number of points, very important points, they have completely different versions of what was going on there. My point that I'm making is someone's version of this is way the fuck off. And based on experiences that, yes, you've had and other people have had, and I have some people coming to me privately also who don't want to go on record, but verifiable, legitimate people with stories like this seems to be, and you don't have to agree with this, but I'm just saying, this seems to be a woman who has an issue with lashing out at people and making up stuff or maybe imagining or reinterpreting things,
I can tell you the most damning piece of evidence for me was his ability to prove that there were numerous attempts to meet with the intimacy coordinator, which is a very important person on a movie with as many sex scenes as this movie had. And so she's claiming harassment, which I'm not going to dispute that just yet. If there's a way for her to prove that, fine. But if you're having an issue with the intimacy on this set, and then you're claiming on camera in interviews that you were the intimacy coordinator, that's out of alignment. And then you didn't meet with the intimacy coordinator, that's out of alignment. And then insisting on having your own cut of the film, I've only heard of that in really absurd instances, and it's never ended well for either party. But for me, it was, again, the amount of sex scenes coupled with multiple interviews of her being like, I was my own intimacy coordinator, lobbied in conjunction with the complaint that we need an intimacy coordinator, Justin bringing on an intimacy coordinator and her not meeting with the intimacy coordinator. I was like, which way are we looking on this subject? Like, I'm getting whiplash.
True. Well, and there was something today that I posted on Twitter X, and this was a claim in Justin Baldoni's lawsuit. And of course, I know that it's his lawsuit, his perspective. It's not necessarily the truth, right? But, we look at these different competing documents and then we can make conclusions. But one of the things that is claimed in here that she insisted, they use this word insisted, that Blake Lively insisted that they write sex scenes at her penthouse, that Baldoni come over without the intimacy coordinator, excluding the intimacy coordinator, and work on developing sex scenes at her penthouse. The fact that the intimacy coordinator was not consulted or was not going to be present, and that she's insisting this guy come over to her house to me, isn't that, if true, isn't that pretty shocking?
It is, and this is one of those things where it's like it starts to sound like she's telling on herself, because she really does openly brag on these red carpets of the outsized role she played, and then she's walking it back going, I had no control, he was in all this control, and I was bullied on set. But it's like, it's not reading that way.